Hey there! Welcome back to another horror movie review from another film from the year 1980. Now, I don't necessarily know if this is officially a 1980 film because I've seen different varying things. I see that this is an 81 movie. I see that this is a 1980 film. I'm going with 1980 because that's what I see on IMDb, so I'm going with that. But anyway, the film that I'm talking about is a film called Blood Beach. And this is a movie that I I love the poster for. I absolutely love the poster for this movie. I love the concept of it. I love the tagline. I mean, I think it's a very iconic poster with this woman. This young woman, she's in a bikini, and the beach is literally swallowing her alive. And there's two taglines. The first one on the top of the poster, it's okay, but the one that I really love is the one on the bottom of the poster where it says, "Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, you can't get to it." I love it. I just love that. Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, you can't get to it, which is a total, riff on Jaws. And this film does kind of play out kind of like a Jaws sort of thing, um, with the whole, oh, the beach, there's something wrong, and nobody believes, and they don't want to close the beach, and then, but eventually they do, and there's a lot of missed opportunities with this film. This is a film that's disappointing to me, but it's still a movie I'm glad I watched regardless. And it's a film, if I found it for cheap somewhere, I'd definitely probably pick it up because I do like certain aspects of this film. I don't think it's a total loss, and I don't think it's an absolutely terrible film. I personally think Beyond Evil or The Alien Dead or films like that or Alien 2 on Earth are definitely better examples of total piles of garbage than Blood Beach is. But Blood Beach still has its fair share of issues for me personally. Now, the film is directed by Jeffrey Bloom. This is, I believe, one of the first films he directed. He also helped write it, um, and it was based on a story that he came up with. Stephen Nalavansky also helped with the screenplay. It stars David Huffman as Harry Calder, who's technically the film's lead. Uh, this was one of he did a few films after this, but David Huffman, sadly, he passed away at like the age of 39. So he passed away at a pretty young age. So this is probably one of the few films that he was a lead in. I thought it was okay. I liked how he was like a kind of blue collar, sort of personal kind of guy. He was kind of just a guy that, you know, he was relatable because he was kind of real in that way. Some of the wholesome. That's kind of how and then there's kind of that whole sensibility about this film that I like. This sort of wholesome sensibility about this movie, where it's got this sort of grindhouse concept, but it has sort of this sort of wholesome sort of approach to it. Which I think if you kind of did more with the grindhouse elements, but you still kept that sort of at home sort of feel, I think you could have had a really interesting sort of mix of different genres, but it didn't really go very far with its grindhouse aspect, which is a big problem I have with the movie. You also have Marianna Hill. She plays Catherine Hutton, who was you could say she's technically the film's love interest. She reminded me a lot of like a more sophisticated kind of a lady, kind of like someone like you'd see in like some other movies, um, kind of like a Lauren Hutton type of character, stuff like that. Um, and she was okay, but pretty much what she was, she used to be the lead. She used to date the lead, but then something happened and they broke up. But eventually get back together and they're together by the end of the movie. Um, John Saxon, once again John Saxon is in another one of these movies, like back to back John Saxon movies. Um, he's just like Beyond Evil. He's one of the best things about this movie. I thought John Saxon was great in this. He had a lot of fun lines of dialogue that he said really well in this movie. He completely just owned his role of this police captain, and I just loved the scenes where he's just yelling and getting mad and getting angry and speaking to the, fellow police officers or chewing out, these religious, nuts. I really it was a lot of good fun. I wish he was the lead, to be honest. He was the best character. It was kind of like he's kind of like the Roy Scheider character in Jaws, but he's not the lead for some reason. Um, it's David Huffman, who I don't mind as an actor at times, but there's other times it's really bad when he's trying to be like all emotional and sad. It's cringe-inducing to watch, but his character is not written very well. His character, I don't even know why he was even in the movie. He didn't do anything near the end. He didn't do anything. He was like one of the most useless male leads I've ever seen in a horror film. With useless leads, period. Um, Burt Young is also in this. Paulie as Sergeant Royko. He's fun too. He says a lot. He's technically, you could say, maybe the film's comic relief. You have Otis Young, who plays Lieutenant Pianta Dosi, who doesn't really, he's just there. Stefan Gierasch plays Dr. Demetrios. Um, he's this coroner guy who is the type of guy that he's the scientist kind of guy that people go to see what's going on with whatever, to figure out what might be causing these murders on this beach. And then there's a few other, actors and actresses, but nobody really worth mentioning. Um, at least for me anyway. The film features music by Gil Melly. I don't know if I said his name correctly or not. Part of the score I really like the opening bit, the opening credits. I think it adds a nice little creepy mood and atmosphere to the film. Um, it features cinematography by Steve Poster. I think it could be a lot better. For some reason, it looks like he just smeared KY jelly all over the camera. So it has this really blurry look to it, which from time to time, which really I don't care for at all. And the direction by Jeffrey Bloom at times is good, but there's other times where he just tries to do too much different sort of shots that just seem unnecessary to me. So he's like shooting a sequence where John Saxon is just speaking to his fellow police officers, and he starts out with one, shot where okay, it's a close up of his face, and then he'll randomly cut later to a shot at an angle or a shot shooting him from below. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of thought that was put into doing these different camera techniques in this movie. It just feels like, oh well, I just want to do these different camera techniques to show that I'm a good director. But really what it shows to me is that you're not really that great of a director, that you're still learning and you're trying to figure things out, and that you don't know why you're setting up the shots the way that you are. You're just setting them up because you want to just do something different for the sake of just doing a different take. And that to me just doesn't really add to a film very well. It's distracting. But there's other times where it's fine. But there's definitely more than a few moments in this movie where you're just like, why are you doing this? It's just a weird, unnecessary artistic choice. I don't believe Jeffrey Bloom really went on to do that much after this in terms of directing. Um, I know he directed Flowers in the Attic later, but that's one of the biggest things that he went on to do after this, because he didn't direct anything after Beach until a TV movie 4 years later, and then another TV movie after that, and then Flowers in the Attic was the last film that he pretty much directed. As he directed a few episodes of some TV shows, but that was this Flowers in the Attic was pretty much his last hurrah. Um, the film is gets a running time of 92 minutes, but the version that I saw, I think it's from a VHS rip or something. It doesn't look like a VHS rip. The quality looks actually really good, so I don't know where the copy came from that I found. I think it's from a unofficial DVD release, and it says that it's the uncut version of the film. And really, it's 85 minutes, and this is a 92-minute long film. So there's stuff that's missing, but I heard it's not much. It's just more dialogue and more extraneous stuff that doesn't even need to be in the movie. So maybe the film was better paced to me, because it was like 85 minutes and not 92. But regardless, it still had its moments of just where it just slowed down a bit too much for my tastes. The story is pretty straightforward, but they take it too seriously, which is to this film's detriment. Okay, you have there's something that's underneath the sand at the beach in at the at Los Angeles, California's Venice Beach. And so the film even opens up with a scene very similar to Jaws, where you have a woman who is walking her dog on the beach, and she is then suddenly pulled under the sand by an unseen force. And I thought that was a great sequence and a really good way to suck you in to the film and really get you to keep watching the movie. And I have to admit, these sequences where people get sucked in the sand are really well done. It's just there's not much else. It's just getting sucked in the sand, and that's about it. It's kind of like in Invaders from Mars, the remake by Toby Hooper, when people get sucked into the sand. It's sort of the same sort of thing. But with this, you would think there would be a little bit of blood, or there would be like some gore that would be thrown in too, because it's rated R and it's a horror film, and it's got this sort of exploitation sort of concept, but it doesn't really go all the way with that, and that's definitely disappointing. So the woman screams for help are heard by Harry, who's a patrol or harbor officer, who's our lead, and he's swimming nearby because he swims to work, which is one of the few unique characteristics that this guy has in terms of character development. He swims to work. Other than that, not much else. And Harry reports her disappearance to two LAPD detectives, Royko and Piantadosi, who claim that without a body, there's little that they can do. So then the next day, Ruth's estranged daughter, Catherine, arrives from San Francisco after Harry calls her regarding her mother's disappearance. And of course, she used to have a fling with Harry. And then there's like this bag lady who I didn't mind, who's kind of nuts, and she witnesses another attack and a disappearance and others throughout the film, but she does not decide to come forward. She thinks it's some conspiracy or something. And that night, while staying at Ruth's house, Catherine hears Ruth's dog barking on the beach near the location where Ruth disappeared. Catherine investigates, finds the dog with its head bitten off. And Royko and Piantadosi, as well as Harry, are called to the scene, but police pathologist Dr. Demetrius, he can't accurately determine a cause of death for the dog. He even says he thinks it might have been some guy who just like stomped his head off or something. He doesn't believe that it's a creature of any kind. But Royko and Piantadosi believe it to be work of a serial killer due to the reports of other disappearances over the past few months. The next morning, a teenage girl is buried in the sand at the beach, and then she begins screaming. Her friends pull her out of the sand, only to see that her legs have been injured from an attack by an unseen creature. In the version that I saw, the attack is seen, though. Because for some reason in this uncut version, this version just throws in added scenes of gore that don't really fit within the context of the film. So case in point here, where she is getting scratched by she's basically unseen force. Well, it's not an unseen force in this movie. You see her, she's like, ah, something's biting me, ah, and then it cuts to what looks like something from Humanoids from the Deep, or some ripoff of Humanoids from the Deep, with some scaly lizard claw slashing at her legs, and then it cuts back to a scene later that doesn't really seem to fit within the film. It's just like more gore. It was shot from a completely different director and just tossed in the film. It doesn't even fit at all. So the uncut version is only uncut because this version just has added bits of gore that are just added in there, just thrown in there without really thinking about how they would fit in the film, because they don't fit in the film at all. Another scene where someone gets dragged into the sand, and then you see like a scene later where they're out of the sand and they're getting attacked by one of those green humanoids from the deep monsters. So it was just one of those things where it's just like when you get to the climax and you see the reveal of the monster, And I'm like, wait a minute, well, I thought it was like this scaly lizard thing, and then it's like this fucking weird looking Venus flytrap sea cucumber from hell. Like, what the hell is this? I don't. What? It's confusing. That's what happens. You just throw shit into a movie that doesn't really fit into the film. It makes it confusing. So anyway, so there's a girl, she gets attacked. The police, led by Captain Pearson, played by John Saxon, they begin an investigation by digging up various sections of the beach, but they find nothing. The next morning, people visit the beach, which the local media have dubbed the Blood Beach. The following night, Harry's coworker Hoagie is closing up the harbor patrol office for the night when his girlfriend ventures under the pier to investigate a noise and is assaulted by a man. And this is really random. It was just like, it just ties into something this bag lady was talking about. There's rapists, there's rapists at the beach, and then bam, here's a rapist who just shows up and tries to rape her and rape Hoagie's girlfriend. And I have to admit, this film has Hoagie in it, but it's definitely a better film with a character named Hoagie in it than Jaws: The Revenge. Um, it's not saying much, but yeah, I would definitely say Blood Beach is a better movie. And I didn't mind the character of Hoagie either because he was just a likable guy. He just liked to sing his music. He had a good, I thought he had a good rapport with his girlfriend. And yeah, he wasn't necessarily, the most well thought out character or, the greatest actor in the world. But there's something about the character Darrell Fetty played that he was just a likable guy. And, when he got eaten by whatever it was under the sand, I mean, I did honestly feel a little bit because I was like, hey, he wasn't doing anything wrong. He's not an asshole. I didn't really think he needed to die, but okay. So anyway, his girlfriend is getting pretty much about to get raped by this guy, and then the rapist is attacked by the unseen creature who bites his dick off, and that's one of the few bits of gory moments you see in the film. You see blood, where his dick used to be, and that's really bad. It chews his dick off. And the following night, Harry's coworker Hoagie is closing up the harbor patrol office for the night. Of course, that's what happened. Actually, I'm going backwards. Sorry, I already talked about that. Um, but yeah, the talking about that whole scene, like it just seems like, hey, we need gore, so let's bite this rapist dick off. We need tits too, because this is the audience we're trying to appeal to. So show me the titties. And I'm like, not in a rape scene. I don't want to see titties in a rape scene. That's not sexy to me at all. So, and his dick gets bitten off, but I'm like, why did the monster just bite his dick off? Why did he just eat him? I mean, it doesn't make sense why he just bite his dick off and not eat the guy. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, the monster just has eaten everybody. Why would it just bite his dick off and leave it there? I mean, why would the monster have some sort of conscience and sort of, oh, that'll show you some sort of, moral code for some reason? I don't fucking know. The punishment is I'm just gonna bite your dick off and let you live or bleed to death instead of eat you, even though I'm really hungry and a little dick probably isn't that much in terms of sustenance. But I'm probably looking it's way too much into this. But anyway, some nights pass. Marie, a French airline stewardess who was dating Harry, she chases after her hat, and then she gets grabbed by the unseen creature and pulled under the sand. The next morning, Harry sees Marie's hat on the beach, along with a sinkhole, which is kind of what you pretty much see is these small little sinkholes that show up whenever this creature is ready to devour somebody. And this is something that he recognizes similar to the scene of Ruth's disappearance. And, when he found the dog with its head bitten off. Harry calls the police, who dig up the area around the sinkhole and find Marie's disembodied eyeball. That's all they find. And by the time they show it to Harry, it's already in a plastic bag. So you don't even see like, oh, we found an eyeball. No, it's already in an evidence bag. You see, is this your girlfriend's eye? And then searching for the unknown creature's home, Harry just goes on a hunch to an abandoned section of the pier, like in the basement of this pier, because he remembers hanging out down there when he was a kid, and because his girlfriend or his former girlfriend, but now going to become his current girlfriend, Catherine was telling about, do you have any ideas of where it might be hiding and so forth and so on. So that's when he goes in. He finds nothing, But I do like the location of this pier. I think this abandoned pier is a great location. It's a great setting. When he goes down to the basement, it's effectively creepy. You got all these cobwebs. It's dark. You don't know what's down there. I think there was a decent amount of suspense in that scene. Doesn't really go anywhere because he finds nothing and then leaves. And then later he goes back and wow, there's like all these fucking dead bodies and shit. That I guess his hunch was right. There was something wrong, and I'll talk about that later. And how much does it make any sense? But anyway, so then he rekindles his relationship with Catherine. They go to a nightclub. They rekindle their romance. They have dinner. There's a man with a metal detector who's walking under the pier looking for metal objects when he's attacked and pulled under the sand. And then in a scene later, he shows up. He emerges from a sewer and I guess he's fine, but he's like in shock and horribly mangled, and he can't explain what happened to him, which I don't know why he got out. I don't know how he got out. I don't know how he lived. No one ever tells the script never tells you it. The movie never says anything. Either the cops try to talk to him, he's in a coma and shock, that's it. They never go back to that character. Hoagie's the next victim. He visits the pier to try to persuade Miss Selden, the bag lady, to leave the area. He is then pulled under the sand, and she does nothing. She just watches him die, because, I don't know, I guess she just likes watching people die, because she's a bitch. Then, having been told by Harry about the access tunnel, Catherine visits a storage facility under the pier to look around, because she decides to go under, while he was there, so I'm gonna go under the hunch that my boyfriend had. So she goes down there, and then she finds like dead body, like fucking body parts, like a severed head, hung on a rope. And of course, it scares the shit out of her. And then she gets the other cops to come by. And then I'm like, and then later you find out this is where the monster is. This is the monster's hideout. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. It's a good location for this thing to be hiding in. But I don't buy that this creature that we see later that has no arms, no legs, no hands, no appendages whatsoever to meticulously place dead body parts into the floorboards and shit and hang a dead cat on a rope or hang a severed head on a rope. It's just like, how the hell did this creature do this? There's no way it possibly could have. So that makes me think like, that's why when the creature is revealed, I'm really disappointed because at this point, I'm watching the uncut version. I've seen some green lizard creature, so I'm thinking, oh, maybe that's what it is, and it's like some like mutant serial killer, kind of like Split Second, but at the beach. I actually kind of like that idea. It's eating people, but basically what it does, it just maybe somehow some reason it has a sinkhole powers and just drags people into its lair and eats them. I've heard crazier things. And I'd rather deal with that than, oh, just a shitty looking monster that we see for like a little bit that looks like a fucking, I don't know, looks like a turd with a little Venus flytrap mouth. It's a turd with a mouth. And then it gets blown up by Burt Young. And then the movie pretty much ends there. I mean, really, it then credits have some other stuff because you have, of course, before that, Catherine and Harry get back together, and there was the Demetrius guy. He was talking the corridor guy. He was talking about how what if talking to Burt Young before he blows up the monster and blows up the pier. It's like what if it has regenerative powers and we blow it up and it just regenerates itself. And what if those pieces of it regenerate? And they're like, oh, okay, setting up for the ending, of course. Yeah, all right. And so Burt Young blows it up because he was just like, oh, fuck you, I don't care. Blows up the fucking beer. Doesn't listen to the doctor guy. And then, our two leads get together, and who gives a shit? I don't care because these characters are so poorly written. And then the movie ends with there's these people on the beach, and these small little sinkholes start popping up all over the beach, and nobody's noticing anything. And that's pretty much what it is. It's, oh, everyone's on the beach is fucked. And things are now worse than they were before because the doctor was right, and Burt Young is a dumbass, and he needed to pay attention, and now things are even worse, and it's setting up for a sequel that never happened. And that's Blood Beach. And for a film with blood in the title, there's not that much blood. So, that's a big problem for me. It's a horror film. it has a really cool concept of, something underneath the sand, dragging people underneath it, and brutally eating them or killing them. But you don't see much in terms of gore. You don't see much in terms of blood. Just the most you see is when the guy gets his rapist gets his dick bitten off. The creature itself is a letdown. It just looks really shitty. Because it looks like a turd with teeth, a sea cucumber, mixed with a Venus flytrap. It's not a very imaginative or very cool looking monster. Um, and the effect isn't very good either. And then the film just abruptly ends. And then you're just like, okay. And then you have poorly written characters where you have a lead who the actor is capable enough at times, but his character's so poorly written that, hey, he can swims to work. That's the only defining character trait he has. Other than that, he just has the hots for his old girlfriend, and he gets back together with her. He has a hunch that there's something that might be down in his old childhood hideout, and it doesn't see much except the dead cat. And then later his girlfriend goes down there and finds all the dead bodies, and they find out that's where the monster is. So it was just that's all his character is. He just goes in for on a hunch, turns out to be right, and that's it. He doesn't fight the monster. He doesn't blow up the monster. He doesn't have any connection with the monster. There's nothing. There's nothing. He doesn't do anything. He's fucking useless. He's completely useless in this plot. Into this, except for I got a hunch. Well, anyone could have had a fucking hunch. There's any character. John Saxon could have had that hunch. Burt Young could have had that hunch. That kind of hunch that it's something might be hidden underneath the pier. So, I mean, that's a problem. And the fact that the film's slowly paced, there's not much that does happen. When things do happen, like people get sucked underneath the sand, it's pretty cool. But then there's not much else around the film to make the other aspects of the other parts of it worth watching. Um, like I said earlier, you have that really blurry cinematography that doesn't do the film any favors. But it has a good location and good setting, and I like the idea of a underground creature eating people on the beach. But this film just does not, it does not really take that concept and use it to its full capacity. It doesn't do it as much justice as it could, and that's what makes it disappointing to me. And honestly, I think if this film was written and directed by Larry Cohen, it could have been a classic. Larry Cohen is like one of the perfect uh, directors and writers for a project like this. And I think that's kind of the kind of thing that Jeffrey Bloom was trying to go with, but he wasn't nearly as talented as Cohen was in terms of his storytelling or in terms of his directing. So what you have is a very cheap looking movie that has a really unique concept, and there are moments where it does have fun with itself, but there's so few that it just ends up bringing the film down, down into the sand, never to be seen again. It's a film that it's I would not say underrated because I personally think it's not a very good movie, but it does have a cool concept. It does have a good idea. It just doesn't do everything with that idea that I personally feel it could have. And that's why I've always circled this film as a film that I think could be remade nowadays, and I think a film that could actually be really good if it's actually given the right treatment with a remake. But they did remake this in 2015 with an even probably just as low of a budget, if not even more so, and with a film called The Sand, which looks honestly 10 times worse than this movie. So, hey, they remade it, but they did a shitty job. It looks like they did a shitty job. And so that's my thing. I would like it to be remade, but I want it to be good, not shitty or worse than this. Because that defeats the purpose of remaking this movie. This is a film that in my opinion, did not live up to its full potential. And that's why I think a remake could do it some justice and would be a good idea. But only if the remake is good. If it's bad, that doesn't help anyone. Um, but yeah, I don't know what else to say about Blood Beach except, there's some things about it I like. That's why I don't hate this film. This isn't a rant. It's one of those things where, I'm not angry at the movie. I'm just disappointed. That kind of thing. I'm not seething at it. It doesn't piss me off. I'm just disappointed. Um, it could have been a lot better. It could have been a lot more fun as well. Take it, for example, Piranha. I think that's a better example of a Jaws sort of film that I think this film could have been more like Joe Dante's Piranha, which came out about, I think, like a couple or a few years before this. But, yeah, I don't know what else to say about Blood Beach, except it was a rate out of 5 stars. I give the movie 2 out of 5. It's definitely that kind of film for me. I liked it more than The Awakening and some of the other bad, 80s horror, 1980 horror films I've seen lately. There were some things about it I definitely did like, but for the most part, it just it just failed to live up to the potential that I honestly felt that it had. And that's why it ultimately is not a very good film to me. It's because the screenplay is pretty weak, characters aren't very well written, the creature is a letdown. It doesn't have as much fun with its concept as I think it could. And there's not it's for a film called Blood Beach, there's not much blood. So, that's another thing. But yeah, but like I said, there was other things I liked about it, and I already listed them off before. Like John Saxon's performance and the bits of the score, some of the direction, the concept. But overall, I just think it's a failure in execution. But anyway, thanks for watching my review of Blood Beach, and as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.